Good morning, Wareham. It is Friday, October 25th, and we have a fantastic show here for you. The news headlines, the weather report, and today in history. This morning, Dr. Kimberly Sheverhurd, Ms. Joan Simmons, Miss Bethany Chandler, and Dr. Andrea Schwab joins us to debate over the naming the new elementary school. Also, Nadia Karinokova is in the studio to discuss the week's news and events. But first, I would like to take this moment to thank Not Your Average Antiques, an antique shop down Cranberry Highway in East Wareham, for donating the props that you see in the morning show. So stay tuned because the weather and the news headlines are next. Okay, Wareham, we get the following stories. There was a hearing at the State House on Wednesday for a bill that may influence the economy of Wareham greatly. This bill was submitted by our own representative, Susan Gifford. Gifford's bill would give the Massachusetts Gaming Commission the authority to offer, if they decide it was in the Commonwealth's best interests, a slots parlor license for the South Coast, Cape, and Islands instead of only license currently available for a resort casino, including both slots and table games, and requiring a capital investment of at least $500 million. In favor of the bill, Town Administrator Derek Sullivan said to the Joint Committee on Economic Development and Emerging Technologies that Wareham Park project could be transformative for our economic disadvantage. And to another news, local nurses, obstetricians, midwives, elected officials, and women's advocates gathered at the Rosebrook Event Center on Wednesday night to fight against South Coast Hospital's group decision to close the maternity unit at Toby Hospital. South Coast plans to close Toby's maternity ward at the end of this year on December 31st. Following that closure, Toby patients will require and will divert all patients from Toby to St. Luke's Hospital. The proposal was prompted by the declining birth rate at Toby, which now sees about 375 babies born each year. South Coast Health will announce the final decision regarding the closure of Toby Hospital's maternity unit in 15 days after the public hearing. Also, the Carver Marion Wareham Regional Refuse Disposal District discussed the mechanics of Marion's exit or a complete dissolution of the district during Wednesday's meeting. A group voted to establish a subcommittee that would determine the logistics and the district's liabilities. If any towns remain in the district, they will still need to contribute money to cover the district's continuing liabilities, including insurance for the closed landfill property in Carver and the ongoing workers' compensation, pensions, and other related costs. Despite the many uncertainties, the committee voted to approve an agreement with Covanta. If the district is still together in 2021, Covanta has agreed to take the town's waste at a raised fee of between $75 to $80, with stepped price increase each year. And that's all for this morning news headlines. We are going now to take a look at our weather forecast. Some sunshine this morning with increasing clouds during the afternoon, high at 63. Cloudy at night today with low around 45. Tomorrow, sunshine and clouds are mixed, high at 57. A few showers developing later at night with low at 42. Sunday, cloudy with periods of rain, high at 58 and low at 49. And that's all for this morning weather forecast and that of the weekend. We are going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to continue with more. I'm back. So right now we have our favorite Russian in the studio. Nadia Kiritnikova is in to discuss the week's news and events. How are you doing?
Great, thank you, Quinn.
I love the blazer.
Thanks.
Is that new?
Yeah.
Love the colors.
Thanks. I like the contrast.
Yes. All right, so Nadia, you want to start with the skeleton, not in the closet. This one was found where?
Behind Cranberry Plaza.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is going on?
Yeah, this week we have a very interesting police activity. We're stepping aside from our usual drug raids.
Yes.
So, I believe it was on Sunday night, someone found a skeleton. It's human body remains. So it wasn't, as I understand, it wasn't completely decomposed. So it was like a skeleton body, but...
Are they sure it's not Halloween spirit? Are they sure it's not like good makeup and good special effects?
Yeah, I think they're sure. So anyway, do you know where Stop and Shop is?
Yes.
Yes, this whole area is called Cranberry Plaza.
Yes.
And there is a wooded area behind the Cranberry Plaza. And it is notorious, that's what we discussed in our newsroom, it is notorious for having a lot of homeless people,
Yes.
drug addicts, because I frequently shop there as well, and I see all these people, and our assumption, so police said that it wasn't a murder, and we assume it wasn't a Native American, because otherwise we would have gotten a different press release, something with the it just would have been a different nature of the press release, but it was clearly someone who had died there, so maybe it was something related to drugs, but we don't know yet.
Until the fact that you are witnessing a skeleton rather than a fully body in the process of decomposing, it means that this murder or this death has taken place long time ago.
Yeah, we speculated, journalists, that it happened in the winter when it was cold.
Happened in last winter.
That's what we think, yes. Because if it's a skeleton, then it must have taken a long time to become a skeleton. And also, if it were supposedly a homeless person or a drug addict who died there, it's most likely to assume it was in the winter because it's cold.
What are the police saying? What details have they offered?
So all of my words are just speculations. Police is just saying that it was a skeleton-shaped body. I mean, it was like, and
who found it?
So this is very suspicious. Police said that someone looking for a lost item in the wooded area behind Cranberry Plaza found the body. But I don't understand what you can lose in the wooded area behind Cranberry Plaza.
You'd be amazed.
Yes. It is, why would you go there in the first place to lose something and then come back to go and search for it? I can't imagine what can you possibly lose in there, and why would you go there in the first place?
All right, so we do not have the identity of this fella.
No.
We do not know if it's a man or a woman.
We don't know yet.
We do not know the age. We're speculating a lot of things. It's pure speculation at this point.
Yes, but it wasn't a murder, according to the police.
According to the police, they have ruled the murder out. All right. So we have that. What else is about to take place apart from the town meeting?
Well, I think it's very important to note that on Wednesday night, there was a public hearing where people it lasted for over 3 hours. And people were speaking out regarding the possible closure of the Toby Hospital maternity ward. It was very interesting. A lot of passionate people came to speak out on this subject. So there are a few arguments for the Toby Hospital maternity ward closure, one of which mentioned the birth rate declined by 22% over the past 5 years, specifically the Toby Hospital, while the St. Luke's, so it sees increase in childbirth.
But that's a city.
It's in New Bedford, yes.
Yes, it's a city of New Bedford. And
yes.
Also when you look at economics between New Bedford and Wareham, yes, we don't differ as much. But we have more affluent people, more educated people, I would take, from Wareham than in New Bedford. Demographics are different. And also there are a lot of immigrants in New Bedford. So they tend to produce more.
That's an interesting topic, yes. But the thing is that you're right. the South Coast isn't just closing maternity ward at Toby Hospital. They're also investing $17 million to open a whole new chamber, so to say, wing for mothers and newborns. So they're compensating for the closed maternity ward at Toby. So they're building a new wing for that at St. Luke's.
Okay.
Yes.
So, tell me about this conversation on Wednesday. Apart from the emotional side of this debate, of this discussion, this discourse, what were the some of the logistics behind what people were speaking up for?
So this is one of the things that I found very challenging during the hearing, is because many people seem to have a personal connection with Toby Hospital maternity ward because many of them gave birth there. But they didn't really point out what we should do and why it should stay, besides the fact that
there wasn't a compromise presented from the Massachusetts Nurses Association?
No, compromise wasn't. But South Coast promised that the spirit of Toby Hospital maternity ward, I really like this quote, by the way, South Coast officials said that the spirit of the South Coast, Toby Hospital maternity ward doesn't just lay in the walls of the building, it also lays within the staff. So they will take all the best effort to transport the staff to a new location with the best care they can.
Well, that's another issue.
Yes.
Then there will be cuts made. People may be losing their jobs or transferring to other locations.
I don't know about that, to be honest. I don't know. Maybe they will allocate them somewhere, so I cannot speak out of that.
Any health risks that were discussed?
Health risks. No, not really, but there was one woman who I found particularly interesting. She gave birth to her first child at Toby Hospital maternity ward many years ago, but because she was 39 years old and she had a complicated first pregnancy, when she was pregnant with a second child, she decided to not take any chances and give birth to St. Luke's because she believes the staff there was better and they had more professional equipment. So I don't think it's all black and white. I think St. Luke's also has some advantages.
So we will be hearing in the next 15 days.
Yes,
but
that's
it's not from Toby. It is from the Department of Health.
Yeah, that's what I was surprised, to be honest. I didn't know it was Department of Public Health last word on this topic.
Well, they were present that day.
Yes, they were present. They were the one who were. The moderator was from Public Health.
What did they offer? Did they offer any words?
So the moderator specifically said that we're not here to comment or resolve the issue. We're only here to listen to the public and let this opinion influence our decision.
Okay.
So they will take all this into account.
But their decision has no bearing to the final decision from Toby.
Can you repeat that again?
Their decision has no bearing. They may recommend, but they cannot institute what Toby should or should not do.
Yeah, I think this was happening.
All right, so then you have town meeting that is coming up on Monday. Tell me, how prepared are you? What are you looking to see, to hear?
I'm still traumatized from
from what?
From the Springtown meeting.
That was a banal town meeting. There wasn't much
It
discussed
was 2 days long, and it lasted till like 10 or 11, I remember.
How long do you think this one will last?
I think the same. So I'm mentally preparing myself.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think electronic voting will make it any faster, to be honest.
Are you covering anything this weekend?
This weekend, nothing major. Tonight I'm covering a Halloween party at YMCA.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Yes. Tomorrow I'm covering. I'm sorry. I need to look at my calendar. But then,
you just came from a vacation, Nadia.
not just last month. But the reason why I'm not remembering is because this is like minor things. So I'm covering youth soccer tomorrow, so it's not like a major event.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Nadia, for being in the studio
Thank
this
you.
morning. That was Nadia Karina Kova, my weekly news correspondent in the studio to discuss the week's news and events and her upcoming stories that she'll be covering. Town meeting is on Monday. She'll be there. Please send her some letters. Tell her what to write about. Not really. They don't tell you what to write about. You go there and you form your own opinion. Anyhow, so right now we are going to move to our first featured program of the day, and that is Mary Rose, who is growing stronger every day. She is 105 years old. And when you see her and when you hear her, Jita, she got nothing on you.
Yeah, she's awesome.
But she's awesome.
Yeah.
At 349 Onset Avenue is the home of Onset's oldest resident, Mary Rose, who just turned 105 years old.
I remember my father's store.
It was this area, right?
Yes.
This was the store.
Yeah, and had a room in back. And he had a wonderful store, I tell you. He had bananas hanging from the rafters, and you had boxes of grapes.
Born in 1914, Mary Rose is the oldest of 7 children. She attended Oak Grove School right outside her house. So this particular school right here,
Yes,
who was allowed to go there?
just the Cape Verdeans. They were segregated from the Hammond School. Hammond School was there, and Mom was going there, and they actually took them out of there and put them all over here, separated them.
Though she was born in the United States, her first language was Creole, the language of her parents, who were Cape Verdean immigrants. One of her childhood fond memories was the day she got a baby sister.
That day, we were all in that room there.
Now it's a kitchen, right?
Yes.
And we don't know what's going on upstairs. My father sent me to get the ladies. The
Midwives.
Yeah, get the ladies.
They all went upstairs. Then my father comes down, he says, "You have a sister."
And at the same time, the train is back here, the tracks,
Yes.
and the train went by.
The train used to run back, way back. And, so I told my sister and brothers, "Did you hear that train?" "Yep." "Well, Alvina came in that train." My father told me that that's where we all came. Then I go to school and I tell them.
You told them Avina came from the train.
The boys are smart. They know everything, I guess. They told me, Alvina didn't come on any train. And they left it at that.
I left it at that. She also recalls tough moments in history, such as segregation, war, and the Great Depression.
1929, there was
The Depression, the crash
my father
in the government.
closed the store. That depression was bad. You see people walking in the road looking for money. Nobody had work. There was a factory in East Wareham, closed down, and my godfather used to work on it.
What did they have in that factory? Was
Cotton.
that cotton? There was a
Cotton
cotton
comes
factory
from-
in Wareham. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah, down south.
Her family, like many other Cape Verdean families at that era, worked in the cranberry bogs.
Everybody picked the cranberries, especially the men. They bring the kids too. They brought us too to pick the berries, and we did a good job. I made $30. That was good. And that's how I got that coat with the fur.
She met her husband while picking cranberries. She also recalls the day his aunt came to her house to ask her parents for a hand in marriage.
I don't know what my father was going to say. I went to bed. I knew they were coming. I went to bed. I stayed there.
What was it like growing up with your mother?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, she was always a very quiet person, very religious, but she loves to teach. So she was very kind, and she taught me a lot, you know, and patience, and she cooked. She's a very hard worker. In the summers, my dad had made in the backyard, he made out of barrels and things like that, fire pits and stuff. So Mom would can. She would do all the canning. We lived down the Cape at the time, and the weathers are bad. So to prepare for winter, she would can all the vegetables, corn and beans and piccalilli and pickles, and then we had our home was like a zoo. We had chimpanzees, we had geese, we had calves, cows, and then they would get slaughtered for the winter. We had a huge freezer down in the cellar, and so they would package it all up, all the meats, and then like they would purchase rice by the 100-pound, Uncle Ben's rice by the 100-pound bags, and then they put tobacco inside so the bugs don't get the rice. It'll last all winter. Lima beans, you buy it in the big bags, and you put the tobacco, crush up the cigarettes and put them in there, you know.
Scrambled in a pool of long memories is a pivotal incident in her life. The day she eluded a terrible fate.
She was telling me when she was going to night school, and she was wondering, I'll just cut to the chase there for you. She was wondering why some of the ladies in the class, they would, all of a sudden she started seeing some of the women not coming back to school. So she was saying that one day she went to the school, and so she took a ride with this guy. So go ahead, you pick it up from there.
Yeah, well, that guy was Creole, you know, and he was teaching school too. He said, "Where do you ladies live?" They said, "Oh, nothing." He said, "Well, I live up that way. I can give you rides." And then the next day, it took 2 days. Those two women, I didn't see those women.
Never came back to class.
They never come back. I don't know where they went. Like this.
So the next night, she took the ride again for him to take her home. So you got in the car, and he's driving off from school. So where do you go?
All of a sudden, I see there's snow on the ground, and there's woods.
And she doesn't recognize where she is.
I said, "You got to take me home." I said, "You don't go home this way." He says, "I shortcut," and that you know. Then he stopped the car. He said, "I want you to promise me that you go out with me." I said, "I'm not going out with nobody." I went to go check the
door.
He locked the door.
She started saying the Hail Mary.
Yeah. That time I was going to church all the time, you know. But I didn't realize that I was trained. You meet that? All of a sudden I happen to look up, I see a car coming with lights on top.
Blue flashing lights.
The cop come right by him, got off. He said, "What are you doing here? What is this? You stopping in the snow? Are you all right, lady?" I said, "I'm all right." I said, "I'm not going to make any." He told him, "I want you to get the car going. I'm going to follow you, so you let her go home. You take her home." He said that. He started the car. He didn't go too far. He says, "You and your Hail Mary."
She never went back either.
I wanted
She
to
quit the
finish
school.
my high school, but I should have reported him. That's what I should have done.
When somebody asks you about your secret of making it to 104, almost 105, what do you say?
Well, I didn't do it on purpose.
I think that's amazing that God has allowed her to be able to enjoy the technology of today. And so it's fascinating. It's like when people are ill, and you're going to pull the plug, and then next week they have a cure. So it was like, wow, she can take advantage of this. So it's really, really something.
In a nutshell, Mary Rose attributes personal communication and family as a recipe for a long, happy life. Hello, and thank you for being with us this morning. We are broadcasting live from our WCTV studio in Wareham. This is Good Morning Wareham, your source for local news, weather, traffic, and more information. And now for a moment in history, let's take a look at where we were today in history. On this day in war history, the United States invaded Grenada in 1983. President Reagan ordered 6,000 Marine troops into the island in order to secure Americans' interests. The Marxist government ended up falling, and America set up a system that they saw fit. Today in rock history, AC/DC gets their first top 40 hit in 1980. The Australian group got their break with their song You Shook Me All Night Long, a song from their biggest album, Back in Black, which would go on to sell over 20 million copies around the world. AC/DC was ranked as the 10th highest selling recording artist ever, with a total of 71 million albums sold. On this day in art history, Pablo Picasso was born in 1881. Born in Spain, he had his first art exhibit at the age of 13 years old. His career lasted over 3/4 of a century, and he created over 50,000 pieces, including paintings, drawings, sculptures, and more. His surreal style has influenced numerous artists, and his impact will be felt forever. And that is all for this morning history segment. To learn more cool historical facts, you can go online under history.com. The coffee segment is next, but first, we are going to take a look at the NAN project that works towards ending suicide rates in the country.
we're here because, or I'm here because I would like to know about the NAN project. I have learned a little bit about the background story, your family, your daughter, your sister, who passed away due to mental health struggles. So let's start from there. Normally families would like to remember their loved one, would like to make their death meaningful. Was this the idea behind starting this nonprofit?
Yes, we started the NAN project more than 3 years ago because after the death of Nan by suicide, what we realized is that people don't talk about suicide. And there's such stigma and shame and judgment associated with stigma that young people who may be struggling, and there are so many that are struggling, are afraid to come forward. They don't know where to turn, they don't know how to ask for help, and I just don't want another family to go through what we've been through because of something that is preventable. Suicide is preventable.
Now, when you talk about the stigma, what was that stigma? Did you feel the stigma after your sister passed?
I think there was stigma. She felt stigma growing up. We knew from the age of 14 or 15 years old that she had mental health diagnoses, but because of the stigma that surrounds mental health, she was very resistant to getting treatment. And I think us as a family, we didn't really have the language to talk about her mental health struggles because there's such stigma that surrounds it. We knew very little about depression or anxiety and how to help someone that's struggling.
Now, you said it can be prevented.
Yes.
You strongly believe that suicide can be prevented?
I do believe that suicide can be prevented if we talk about it, if people are educated about it, if we know how to respond to someone who's struggling. You know, it can be as simple as asking the question, are you thinking of hurting yourself? And there's a myth that says that is something that may, let me say this again, it's a myth that if you say something about suicide, it will plant an idea. That's not true at all. It will bring relief to the person who may be experiencing suicidal thoughts. And it gives them the opportunity to know that someone understands what they're going through, or that they can talk about it, that they can ask for help.
So knowing that fact, how do you reconcile your daughter's death?
I think that's a very hard question to answer. I'm not sure I want to go there.
Okay. All right. So you started this project, this nonprofit, to raise awareness, right? We are working in schools. We are reaching out to the young children. Why there?
Because we saw that Nan her struggles were throughout school. And we really needed a jumping off place. So we started our work in high schools. We bring our young adults who have struggled with various mental health concerns, and we work with them to create what we call comeback stories, where they talk about what it was like to be a 16-year-old struggling with depression, or a 17-year-old with anxiety. But more importantly, what were some of those supports that they were able to access either within their schools or within their communities to get onto this path of recovery. We started with the high schools because we needed somewhere to start. But now we're moving into middle schools, we're doing some work with colleges. We're really just trying to spread this awareness around mental health and make this a conversation that people of all ages can have.
Okay. What are we learning about today's struggles, today's the problems that the youth are facing? I'm sure, not to date you, but what you went through back in high school may look very different from what the young ones are going through right now.
And I'm ancient, but Jake will tell you that it's very different. But what we're learning is that the rates of anxiety, the rates of depression just continue to skyrocket. Kids are struggling at much higher rates, and it keeps going up. Suicide is the second leading cause of death of young people.
Okay. So then we go to the schools. What do we say? What message are we sharing? Tell me about the conferences you have, the discussions that you have with the teens.
Right. So our model, like I said, is a peer-to-peer model. So we have young adults who go and present their stories, talk about what it was like for them to struggle when they were in high school, with the idea of opening up that conversation around mental health and making it something that the students feel comfortable talking about in the classroom setting, making that classroom a safe space for them to open up and ask questions around depression, around bipolar disorder, schizophrenic, whatever that mental health issue is, and making that a comfortable place to talk about it, and more importantly, educating them about where they can go to support themselves or their friends. Who are those trusted adults that they can turn to when they need to?
Okay. Do we know anything when we're talking about stigmas? Who is at risk when it comes to suicide, mental health? Because some people would think, oh, that's suicide. It's a rich person problem, or you know, they have a certain image. But what do we know from the work you're doing?
So I would say suicide is blind. It can affect people of all races, all ages. It affects us all. We do know that men are at 4 times higher risk of dying by suicide, but females are 3 times more likely to attempt a suicide. And that has to do with the means that males use versus females use. But white males aged 35 to 54 tend to be at the highest risk of suicide. But again, it's the second leading cause of death amongst young people. So it doesn't really differentiate among age, race, nationality. It affects us all.
Okay. So when we go to the schools and the peers share their stories, we open up the discussion. What follows? How long do you stay there to make sure that it continues to be a safe place?
Right.
And that is sort of the heart of the NAN project, is it is not a one and done intervention. We open up the conversation, but our goal is to keep that conversation going amongst the students, within the student body. And we do that by bringing into the schools a whole framework for how to continue the conversation around mental health, around suicide prevention, but also around emotional well-being. And we do that with our peer mentors, supporting the students, and often a student group, to hold events, to produce resource sheets that tell students where they can go if they're struggling, to have a stress less week that they might have 1 week, to do extracurricular kind of activities and engage students in discussions around mental health. We want to normalize the conversation, and you can only do that over time. Begin to have that cultural shift where people equate mental health in the same way that they talk about physical health, because it is the same thing. It's all about health.
Now, according to CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, it said that last year, their survey on mortality and life expectancy in the United States found that the national suicide rate is increased and has increased by 33% between 1999 to 2017. Right now, we hear a lot in the media regarding the war on drugs, war against opioids. We are facing a crisis. That's what our current administration is talking about, and the whole nation is responding to this. Do you think we are also facing a crisis when it comes to suicide?
Very definitely. Very definitely.
Absolutely. I think it's all over. Sorry. Absolutely. And I think it's all related. You find most people who are struggling with substance use also have a mental health disorder. So there's a lot of overlap there. And a lot of these deaths by opioids, many of them could probably be classified as suicide as well. So I think it's a very connected crisis that we are facing.
When talking about the opioids crisis, depending on which community you're speaking to, there are those who would say we have been facing a crisis for a very long time. This crisis has not begun today. But the whole nation is aware of it because it impacted a certain person of certain demographics, right? So when it comes to suicide, why do you think, or do you think the same narrative would play in terms of why it's not out there, why the country isn't responding as it should? Because it hasn't impacted the so-called right victim to rally the whole nation.
I mean, I think suicide, you are seeing more discussion around suicide every time there's a celebrity death by suicide. So it is being talked about a little bit more than it was several years ago, but it's also the stigma that surrounds. There's a shame that people who lose a loved one, a friend, to suicide, there's a shame that a lot of people unfortunately feel related to that. And until we kind of take away that and make people feel a little bit more comfortable talking about suicide, that stigma is going to remain there.
So how should we be talking about suicide?
Openly
Openly.
and with a very healthy concern about how we can reach out to young people, anybody who's struggling. How we can, I think one of the greatest protective factors is connection. To, if you know someone who's struggling, or even if you're just not sure, is to talk to, are you okay? How can I help? I'm here. I really care about what's going on with you. So, you know, if you don't want to talk now, maybe we could talk later. But I do care. I mean, it's really making sure that you connect and don't be afraid of it.
Do not be afraid of it. All right, thank you to both of you for sitting down with me to discuss about the NAN project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Wareham. This is Good Morning Wareham, and we are broadcasting live. With me this morning is Dr. Kimberly Sheverhood, our superintendent, followed by Miss Joan Simmons from Minot Forest Elementary, and Miss Bethany Chandler from Dickus Elementary, and Dr. Andrea Schwam, our assistant superintendent here in Wareham. Our discussion this morning is naming the new elementary school. What is the name? Who gets to have the final saying? We have heard from Cindy Parola a couple weeks ago. We have heard from Selectman Alan Slavin earlier this week. And today I have the school department here with me to hear their story. Why are we here? What's the confusion about?
Well, we just want to share how we came up with the recommendation to the school committee to move the article forward to town meeting with the name Wareham Elementary. And I brought our administrators with us today to give you a little insight on the inside of the building, how we believe that it combines history into the name, and to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. So the big fuss is whether the name is Dickus School at Minot Forest or the Wareham Elementary School. Let's start with you from Minot Forest. What is your take?
Originally the project was a Minot Forest project. We were very fortunate with MSBA that they saw the condition that the Dickus School also was in, that they would need a building project somewhere down the road, and that would take several years. So they allowed us to do a pre-K to 4 proposal and combine both elementary schools into one. Then we had to look at the land in town, what was available, what would be viable, and through that process, the Minot Forest site was the parcel that was chosen. So that meant we were able to demolish the building and select that to have the new elementary school. We always wanted to make sure we honored the families in town. So the John W. Dickus family, the William Minot family. So as we were talking about the new building, we thought, what a great way to honor by having names inside of the building, and not just for those two families. You know, we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. We want to make sure that they get the due respect that they're entitled to. So we thought we would have sections of the building that we could name not only after those two families, but other families as well. And we would like to have a committee that would work with that. Mm-hmm. So we have a new building, new configuration in town, new elementary school, and we thought we would have a new name. So that is why we came up with Wareham Elementary. It's consistent with some of the other schools that we have, Wareham Middle School, Wareham High School. We had East Wareham Elementary, West Wareham Elementary. So it wasn't a new concept, it was an existing concept in town. Okay. So that's why we felt it was important.
Yeah, and I would just add that not only are we going to want to honor the existing elementaries, but we've had a number of outstanding educators who have passed either while they're employed or shortly thereafter the retirement, and we want to create a space that will honor our employees in the building, as well as students, because we've had several students pass during the time of their K-12 school year, and we've been able to bring different objects from the building that have honored our students, and we will create some kind of a memorial area that will honor.
Okay, so more of an inclusive
Yes.
picture. So when I had Miss Cindy Parola in the studio, and she said, though it's a new building, we should not forget the history, the families, okay? We would not have Deacon's School if it wasn't for her family. So she wasn't all about having her name inside the school, but outside of the school. Did you get to talk with her? Did you get to share your opinions with her?
Personally, no.
Okay.
But being a staff member of John W. Deacon's School for a long time, I had the honor of meeting Georgia Chamberlain, who is Cindy's aunt, John W. Deacon's niece, who also gave and contributed a lot to our school. So I have had a connection with the family. I think it's important to note that it's not the Deacon's School, it's John W. Deacon's, named after John W. Deacon's from World War II, who died in the battle during World War II. So even the name, if it were to be Deacon's School at Minot Forest, it's not representing the Deacon's family, it's representing John W. Deacon's himself, who his parents donated the land to.
Okay. So another confusion is when I was speaking with Selectman Slavin, he said that the town has already voted for this name, Deacon's School at Minot Forest, during last town meeting. And we are saying?
I would respectfully disagree with that.
Okay.
The vote last year was for the new elementary school, to even have a new elementary school. So I know that there was a name attached to the warrant, but that was not a proposed official name for the school. So I think that's where the confusion is.
And the vote was really to move forward the question onto the ballot to see if the town would fund the school. But if Dr. Schwam could explain a little bit about the interior of the building and why our recommendation would be to call certain areas certain things. We've tried to make the connection, and she can share that.
So of course this project is 3 years on, right? We've worked very hard, and during visioning sessions we looked at our strategic plan and we met with a lot of stakeholders, and through that process the building was built around education, not only for today but for the future, and as a result of that this innovation hub was established. And it's a new concept. It will probably be a building that many will come to visit because of the innovation hub and what it means to have that in a school. And it's a pretty spectacular place. So we have, it's an interdisciplinary area where students will be actively learning and creating, and there'll be research and STEM lab and art and media and everything you can imagine together in that place, people working together, and it's the centerpiece of the building. So it's an important element of this, of how this building is working, and a very, very dynamic space. And we felt that because of the contribution of the Deacon's family and how that could be represented in a way that was really out of the ordinary, or extraordinary, I'd like to say, we thought that having the name be the John W. Deacon's Innovation Hub would be spectacular, just because of what it represents. And I'm not sure that everyone understands. They're looking at school as a typical school. This is a very, very creative endeavor, and a very important space. And so when we were thinking about all of those elements and looking at making sure, which was a huge priority overall, not only for us but for the whole committee, the priority to honor the families, we looked at what areas were best reminiscent of how they fed us in our move forward in education. With mine, it was very similar. We discussed all the different elements of the building and how can we best represent what they've given to us and then have it demonstrate externally why it was important. So I think that's important to note. I'm not sure that that's been properly communicated necessarily, but.
Okay. So tell us why it is important to whether name a school Wareham or go with the Deacon's at Minot Forest. Why are we discussing this?
I think there's more names involved than just the two families. You know, Ethel Hammond we had a school named after her. We want to make sure that we incorporate that into the school somehow. I did reach out to the Minot family. I spoke to Jane Tugas, who was representing them. William Minot has a daughter that lives out of state. And she had said, as long as we represent the name somewhere in the building, that they would be okay with that. They weren't looking to have the name on the school, but it was important that we carry on the William Minot name. You know, that was the family that also donated the land that Minot Forest was built on. So we want to be fair to everyone. We don't want to have, you know, one family against another, and we felt this was the best way to do that.
You know, the other thing that I would say is we're bringing two elementary schools together, and it's Wareham. And we felt like by having Wareham Elementary, Wareham Middle School, and Wareham High School, it represented a unity in our educational system.
So this ballot is going to go on a Springtown meeting, right? To change the name, what are you going to be asking for?
The warrant article that will go to the selectmen, hopefully for Springtown meeting, will be the name Wareham Elementary School.
Okay. And people will get to vote on that, or will they have an alternative?
We don't have an alternative.
You don't have an alternative. Have we thought if it fails, what it's going to be?
I think we'll be back at square one to
Square
look
one.
at what we're going to recommend naming it.
Okay. So tell me, I mean, apart from the families involved, what has been the feedback from the community? Have you gotten a chance to hear their opinions, some of the parents maybe?
We have, and I've been asking a lot of the community members as a town resident here, and it sounds like a lot of people think that Wareham Elementary is the most neutral name. It's a safe name from our perspective as well, and to have little children going to a school and having to explain where they go to school. It's a lot, you know, it's simple to say Wareham Elementary as opposed to Deacon's School at Minot Forest becomes very, very long for a child to remember what school they attend. And I know that sounds simple, but it's important in the idea of safety factors as well.
You know, and I think it's very, very important to acknowledge what the families have given us, the history, and to pass on that we're very, very grateful. And we're by no means making any attempt to diminish what has been given graciously. We just would like to honor and bring the elementaries together into one.
So as I said, the town has had a chance to hear from pretty much everybody involved in this process. Now hearing from you guys from the school department, they got to hear Cindy. I couldn't reach out to the member of Minot Forest, but I would love to hear from them too. So it seems like, okay, you are putting this at the hands of the voters for Springtown meeting. They get to decide. If the vote is not there, then we're going to go back to square one to determine what to do and how to move forward. The deadline of this project is
We will be moving in January 2022.
Okay, 2022. All right. Ending at January 2021, right? December, but
December.
we're not opening until January 2022.
When we come back from vacation.
Yeah. Part of the reason was we know that this is going to be a change for our students. And if we would open in the summer into the fall, some of our students would not have the opportunity to come up to tour, to learn where they're going to go. Our teachers, we need to be able to get our classrooms ready. And we're also on a deadline, so we're anticipating if we would open in the fall that everything would be on schedule furniture would be in, and day one we could open the doors. That's a scary venture. So we thought it also helped us financially to delay a little bit with our bids, and it will give us time to have students tour the building. It will give us time to have the teachers come in and work in their classrooms, and it will give us time to make sure that we have everything ready to go when we say we're going to open.
Okay. And one last question, and this is really for you and also Dr. Schramm. What has been the process in the past of naming a school? How did we get the Wareham Middle School and Wareham High School?
I can't speak to that because I wasn't here. I've been in several other districts that I've been involved in a building project, and the most recent, the name was announced at a graduation by the chair of the school committee without any conversation with anyone else, and it was a surprise to all of us. And so I think it just depends on the community and the process.
And the process.
Mm-hmm.
How about your experiences?
I have not had many with that particular issue. I respect the process, and I think that, you know, we'll do what we can to cooperate and participate and try to do the right thing all of the time for the community, right? So that's what we're trying to do in building the school, is to give kids everything that they need. So we'll respect the process and respect the voices of all that we hear, and eventually a decision will need to be made. But now that it's the town has the ability to make that decision, and that's actually kind of a nice thing because now, you know, it's not ours, right?
Yes.
We didn't choose the name either. You know, this was a committee decision, a lot of members, but it's nice. Then it will go into the hands of the town, and good, they can decide.
Well, thank you to all of you for being here with us this morning. Again, to my viewers, I had Dr. Kimberly Sheverhood, our superintendent. I had Joan Simmons from Minot Forest, and also Bethany Chandler from Deacon's Elementary, and Dr. Andrea Schramm, our assistant superintendent. And we were talking about naming the new elementary school. Their vote is on Wareham Elementary School, an inclusive building honoring everybody from the past and those, and actually the future. So just an inclusive environment rather than just keeping the two prominent names that we know, Deacon's and Minot. So I welcome your opinions too. I'll be happy to hear what you think. This will be at Springtown meeting, so you will get to voice your opinions through a vote. With that, thank you for joining us this morning. If you missed us, this show will re-air this evening at 6 p.m. We'll also go on our YouTube channel at Wareham Community Television on YouTube. See you on Monday, and don't forget that we have town meeting. Bye.